I was at my desk reviewing quarterly reports when my phone rang. The caller ID showed a number I didn't recognize with a local area code. "This is Claire," I answered, already half distracted by the spreadsheet on my screen. "Mrs. Hartley? This is Amanda from Clearview Title Company. I have you on a three-way call with Evelyn Ward to verify your signature on a quitclaim deed recorded yesterday." My hand froze on my mouse. "I'm sorry, what?" "The quitclaim deed transferring 847 Maple Grove Drive to Mrs. Ward. We just need verbal confirmation that the signature on file is yours." My house. My grandmother's house that I'd inherited 5 years ago. The house I'd lived in since I was 25. "I didn't sign anything," I said slowly, my heart starting to pound. There was a pause. Then Evelyn's voice, smooth as silk. "Of course you did, dear. Last month when you were so stressed about work. I helped you with the paperwork, remember?" "I never signed a quitclaim deed," I repeated, my voice stronger now. Amanda's tone changed instantly, became sharper. "Mrs. Hartley, if you're stating you didn't sign this document, then we have a very serious problem." The recording icon appeared on my phone screen. Amanda was documenting this. "I need to see this deed immediately," I said. "Ma'am, I'm freezing this recording right now. We need to discuss this in person." I stood up so quickly my chair rolled backward and hit the wall. My assistant looked up, concerned. "I need to leave. Family emergency." I grabbed my purse and drove straight to the title company, my hands gripping the steering wheel too tight. My mind raced through possibilities. Evelyn Ward was my mother-in-law. I'd married her son Nolan 3 years ago. She'd never liked me, made that clear from day one. But stealing my house? That was beyond anything I could have imagined. At the title company, Amanda led me to an empty conference room. She was young, maybe 30, with worried eyes. "I need to ask you some very specific questions," I said, forcing myself to stay calm. "File number? G2847-223. Instrument date? April 12th. Notary name?" She checked her computer. "Sylvia Brennan." "And how did you get my phone number?" "It was listed as the grantor contact on the deed." I took a breath. "One more question. Why did you call?" Amanda hesitated. "When I was processing the recording, one digit in the signature looked wrong on the affidavit. The capital R. I've seen your signature on other documents in our system from when you refinanced 2 years ago. This one looked different." She turned her laptop toward me. "I'm emailing you the scan now." My phone buzzed. I opened the attachment with shaking hands. There it was. My forged signature staring back at me from the screen. I stared at the signature for a long moment. My name was typed neatly above the line. Claire Hartley. Grantor. But the signature below it wasn't mine. It was close. Someone had studied my handwriting. But the capital C was too rounded. My R always had a distinctive upward curl at the end that this one lacked. The baseline drifted slightly upward when mine was always perfectly straight. My grandmother had taught me penmanship when I was young. Hours of practice until my signature became distinctive, consistent, unmistakable. This wasn't mine. But what made my stomach drop was the witness line below. Nolan Pike. My husband had signed as a witness to my signature. Which meant either he'd watched someone forge my name, or he'd been part of it from the beginning. "Can you forward this to my personal email?" I asked Amanda. "Already done." I zoomed in on the document, examining every detail. The date. The legal description of my property. The words, "for love and affection and other good and valuable consideration," where the purchase price should be. And at the bottom, a notary seal. I took screenshots of everything. Forwarded them to 3 different email addresses. Saved them to my cloud storage. "What happens now?" Amanda asked quietly. "Now I fix this," I said. "And everyone who helped make it happen learns what consequences feel like." I got home around 6. Nolan was at the kitchen sink washing vegetables, his sleeves rolled up, pretending this was just a normal Tuesday evening. Like he hadn't just helped his mother steal my house. "Hey, babe," he said without turning around. "Rough day?" I set my purse on the counter carefully. Deliberately. "I got an interesting call today. From a title company." His shoulders tensed for just a moment before he continued rinsing the peppers. "Oh yeah? What about?" "A quitclaim deed. Transferring my house to your mother." The water kept running. He turned it off slowly, set down the vegetables, then turned to face me. His expression was carefully neutral. "That's not exactly how it happened." "Then how did it happen, Nolan?" "Mom said it was for estate planning. To protect the house if anything happened to you. She said it was just a formality, that you'd still live here, but this way there wouldn't be tax complications." "And you believed her?" "She's my mother. Why wouldn't I?" I pulled out my phone and showed him the deed. "You signed as a witness. That means you were supposed to watch me sign this document. Were you there when I signed it?" He barely glanced at the screen. "I stopped by the title office with her one day. They said they needed a witness signature on a bank form. I signed where they told me to." "Did you see me there, Nolan? Did you actually watch me sign this?" His jaw tightened. "No. But Mom said you'd already been in earlier that morning." She lied. "I never signed this. Someone forged my signature. And you witnessed a forgery." I photographed the deed on my phone one more time. "Then you won't mind what I do next." The next morning, I went to see a notary at my bank. I'd spent half the night drafting a document, reviewing legal templates online, making sure every word was precise. "Affidavit of non-consent," it said at the top. In careful, legally sound language, I stated under oath that I had never signed or authorized any transfer of my property at 847 Maple Grove Drive. That I had not appeared before any notary to execute a quitclaim deed. That my signature on any such document was forged and fraudulent. The notary at my bank, a woman named Patricia who'd known me for 5 years, read it carefully. "This is very serious, Claire. I know. You're accusing someone of forgery. I'm stating facts under oath. I never signed that deed." She notarized my affidavit with her official seal, made 3 certified copies, and watched me sign each one with my actual signature. "You'll want to file this with the county recorder immediately," she advised. The county recorder's office was downtown. The clerk who helped me understood the situation immediately when I explained. She stamped my affidavit, assigned it a recording number, and stapled a temporary alert to my property parcel. "This flags the property," she explained. "Anyone who pulls the title will see there's a dispute about ownership." As she was processing it, she paused, frowning at her computer screen. "You'll want to call the notary who supposedly witnessed your signature," she said quietly. "The commission number on that seal looks odd. Doesn't match our state database correctly." "What does that mean?" "Might be expired. Or worse." My phone buzzed. A text from Evelyn. "Stop making a scene. This is for marital stability." I found the notary information on the deed. Sylvia Brennan. The address listed was on the east side of town. I drove there during my lunch break, following my GPS to what should have been a notary office. It was a mailbox store. Just a strip mall location with rows of numbered boxes and a counter where you could rent postal addresses. No notary office. No Sylvia Brennan. I sat in my car and pulled up the state notary commission database on my phone. Searched for Sylvia Brennan, commission number 847362. The result made my hands go cold. Her commission had expired 14 months ago. Any document she'd notarized since then was legally invalid, including my forged quitclaim deed. This wasn't just fraud. This was systematic. Evelyn had found a notary with an expired commission who was willing to backdate documents and forge signatures. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Evelyn. "Stop making a scene. This is for marital stability. The house is safer in my name." I didn't respond. I took screenshots of the expired commission, the mailbox store address, everything. Added it all to my evidence folder. Then I searched online for real estate attorneys who specialized in fraud. I found Thomas Keene. His website listed title fraud and property disputes as specialties. His reviews mentioned he was methodical and doesn't back down. I called his office. I need to see him today if possible. It's about property fraud. He has an opening at 6. I'll take it. Thomas Keene's office was in an old brick building downtown. I arrived at 6 with a folder full of printed documents. The forged deed. My affidavit. Screenshots of the expired notary commission. The texts from Evelyn. Everything organized chronologically. Keene was probably 60, with silver hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. I spread everything across his conference table and walked him through it methodically. He took notes on a yellow legal pad, occasionally asking questions. When I finished, he sat back and studied me. "This is one of the clearest fraud cases I've seen in 20 years, he said. "Your mother-in-law was either incredibly arrogant or incredibly stupid. Probably both. The expired notary commission alone voids the deed. Add your affidavit and the text messages where she admits to the transfer." He smiled slightly. "She's given us everything we need. What do we do first?" "I'll contact the title company immediately. Place a hold on the property. Flag it for potential fraud. Draft a formal notice demanding Mrs. Ward execute a deed reconveying the property to you. And if she refuses? Then we file a quiet title action and request a preliminary injunction. But there's something you should know." He turned his laptop toward me. "According to the title company's system, there's a HELOC appraisal scheduled at your house tomorrow morning at 9. Home equity line of credit. Evelyn wasn't just stealing my house. She was planning to borrow against it. Can we stop it?" "Better than that," Keene said. "We're going to let it happen. And document exactly what she's trying to do." I was awake at dawn preparing. Keene had drafted a notice overnight, and I'd printed it that morning on heavy legal paper. Notice: do not trespass without owner consent. Property ownership currently under legal dispute. See County Recorder File 2024-0418. I taped it to my front door at 8:30. Large, official, impossible to miss. The appraiser arrived promptly at 9. Young guy with a clipboard and a nervous expression. He walked up to my door and stopped dead when he saw the notice. I opened the door before he could knock. "Good morning. I'm Claire Hartley. I own this property. I'm here to do an appraisal for..." He checked his paperwork. "Evelyn Ward?" "Mrs. Ward does not own this property. She recorded a fraudulent deed last week transferring it to herself without my knowledge or consent." I showed him my driver's license. Then my recorded affidavit with the official county stamp. His face went pale. "I can't proceed with this appraisal. I need to call my office." "I understand. But first, would you mind showing me your work order?" He hesitated, then held out his clipboard. There it was in black and white. Owner of record, Evelyn Ward. Property to be appraised for HELOC application. Requested loan amount, $200,000. My house was worth maybe $350,000. Evelyn had been planning to borrow more than half its value. Against a house she'd stolen. "Please make sure your report documents exactly why you couldn't complete this appraisal," I said calmly. "I want this on record." He was already backing toward his car, phone to his ear. I called Keene immediately. She was going for $200,000. "Greed," he said simply. "It always makes them sloppy. This helps our case significantly." Keene requested the full chain of title from the county recorder's office. I met him at the courthouse that afternoon. The clerk pulled up the grantor-grantee index on her computer, showing every recorded transaction for my property going back 50 years. My grandmother's name appeared multiple times. Then mine, when she died and left me the house in her will. And then, dated April 12, the quitclaim deed to Evelyn Ward. Walk-in recording, the clerk noted. Someone brought this to the counter in person and paid cash. Cashiered at 9:16 a.m. The same day the title company had called me to verify my signature. Which meant Evelyn had recorded the deed and then immediately started the loan application process. She'd moved fast. Confident. Certain she'd get away with it. Keene was reading something on the screen, his expression darkening. Look at this notation. He pointed to a field I didn't understand. When a notary witnesses a signature, state law requires them to keep a journal. Every single notarization has to be logged with specific details. Okay? This deed cites journal entry number 2847. But according to the state database, that entry number belongs to a completely different transaction. A deed recorded 3 months ago in another county. The clerk had gone very still. That's not just an expired commission. That's fabrication. Using someone else's journal entry to cover a forgery. Can we get documentation of this? Keene asked. I'll print the journal entry discrepancy report right now. My phone buzzed. An email from Keene's paralegal. Certified mail receipt confirms rescission demand delivered to Evelyn Ward. She has 48 hours to respond. That evening, I asked Nolan if I could borrow his phone. The appraiser called today and I need to verify his number, I lied smoothly. Why? Because he couldn't complete the appraisal. Something about the property ownership being disputed. I want to make sure it was legitimate and not a scam. It was a test. If he had nothing to hide, he'd hand over his phone without hesitation. Instead, he hesitated just long enough to tell me everything. I don't have his number. You don't have your mother's appraiser's number? She must have mentioned it. I'll ask her. Or I could just check your messages with her real quick. See if she sent you the appointment details. His face went carefully blank. Fine. But there's nothing there. He handed me his phone. I opened his messages and went straight to his conversation with Evelyn. What I found made my heart go numb. A text from 3 weeks ago, from Evelyn to Nolan. The quitclaim is filed. She'll calm down once it's in your name. Give it time. Not her name. His name. Evelyn had been planning to transfer my house to my husband. I kept scrolling, my hands steady even though I felt like I might be sick. More messages. Planning. Strategy. She'll calm down after it's in your name. Just let me handle the paperwork. You know she trusts you. Another message, from Nolan to Evelyn. Are you sure this will work? Of course. I've done this before with the rental property. Title companies never actually verify signatures on quitclaims. I forwarded the entire thread to my email before handing the phone back. Nolan saw what I'd done. His face went white. Claire, that's not, get out. What? Pack a bag. Get out of my house. Now. I didn't yell. Didn't throw things. Didn't give him the satisfaction of seeing me break. Instead, I went to my home office and printed 2 documents I'd prepared earlier that day. Just in case. Then I sat him down at the kitchen table. You have 2 choices, I said, my voice perfectly calm. First document is a sworn statement that you did not actually witness me sign the quitclaim deed. That you signed as a witness without being present when the signature was made. That's the truth, and it protects you legally from being charged as an accessory to fraud. I slid it across to him. He stared at it without touching it. Second document is a separation agreement. You move out immediately. We divide our assets fairly. You don't contest anything. You cooperate fully with my attorney in unwinding this fraud your mother committed. I slid that across too. If you refuse both, I forward those text messages to the district attorney's office and you get charged alongside your mother. Your choice. His hands were shaking. I didn't know she was going to forge your signature. I swear. But you knew she was transferring property without my knowledge or consent. The texts prove it. She'll calm down once it's in your name. You knew exactly what was happening. She said it was to protect the house from your debt. I don't have any debt, Nolan. I thought. He trailed off, realizing there was no good ending to that sentence. I pushed the documents closer. Sign them. Now. Or I call the police. He picked up the pen. Signed both documents with a hand that shook so badly his signature was barely legible. When he finished, I took them back and stood up. You can stay tonight. Pack your things tomorrow. And Nolan? Don't warn your mother. Don't give her any heads up. If you do, the deal's off. He nodded miserably. The next morning, Keene called with news. Evelyn's attorney just contacted me. They're claiming you signed the deed at your mother's bedside last month. My mother? They're saying you were emotional and stressed about her health, that you signed the paperwork without really understanding it. That Evelyn was just trying to help manage your affairs during a difficult time. I almost laughed. My mother lives in Portland. She had knee surgery last month. I flew out there to help her recover. Can you prove you were out of state? Plane tickets. Hotel receipts. Hospital visitor logs. My mother's discharge papers with my name listed as her primary caregiver. Credit card statements showing purchases in Oregon. Time-stamped photos on my phone from the entire week I was there. What dates? I flew out April 8th. Came back April 15th. And the deed is dated April 12th. Exactly. I was in Oregon when this deed was supposedly signed here. I can prove it. Keene was silent for a moment. Get me everything. Every receipt, every photo, every piece of proof. I want documentation that makes it physically impossible for you to have signed that deed. I'd already started compiling it. By noon, I had a complete packet. Flight confirmations showing I'd flown to Portland on April 8th and returned April 15th. Hotel bills from a Portland hotel. Receipts from Oregon restaurants. Photos I'd taken at my mother's bedside with timestamps embedded in the metadata. My mother's hospital records showing I was listed as present during her entire recovery period. Even my work laptop's VPN logs showing I'd logged in from an Oregon IP address. There was absolutely no way I could have been in two states at once. Evelyn's lie was already falling apart. Thomas Keene was methodical in ways that made me grateful I'd hired him. He took my evidence and created what he called a paper teeth packet. Every document numbered and indexed. Every piece of evidence cross-referenced with others. Flight confirmation on page 1, with my photo at the Portland airport on page 2. Hotel receipt on page 3, with credit card statement on page 4. Hospital visitor log on page 5, with my mother's discharge papers on page 6. By the time he was done, there were 47 pages of irrefutable proof that I was in Oregon when the deed was supposedly signed here. This is what judges love, Keene explained. Not emotional appeals. Not dramatic confrontations. Just facts. Documents. Timelines that can't be disputed. He filed a formal notice of suspicion with the county recorder, attaching the first 10 pages of evidence. Then he contacted the lender's fraud investigation unit directly. I'm giving them everything, he said. Because if they approve that HELOC, they become part of the fraud. Banks don't like being made complicit. Within 24 hours, the lender placed a freeze on all loan applications tied to my property. No HELOC. No refinancing. Nothing. My house was locked down. Now we wait, Keene said. For what? For Evelyn to panic. People like her always make it worse when they panic. He was right. 2 days later, my phone rang. Evelyn's number. Claire, dear, I think we should have a family dinner. Sunday evening. Clear the air about this silly misunderstanding. A dinner? Yes. Harold and I would love to have you and Nolan over. We can discuss this property situation like adults. The audacity was breathtaking. I'll be there, I said. Wonderful. 7 o'clock. After I hung up, I texted Keene. She invited me to dinner Sunday. I'm recording everything. Sunday evening, I drove to Evelyn's house with a small digital recorder in my purse. Legal in my state for recording your own conversations. Evelyn and her husband Harold lived in an expensive subdivision with manicured lawns and 3-car garages. Their dining room table could seat 10. Tonight it was just the 4 of us. Evelyn, Harold, Nolan, and me. Evelyn greeted me with air kisses and a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Claire, darling. I'm so glad you came. I think we've all let this situation get out of hand. We sat down to pot roast and potatoes. Evelyn played the gracious hostess, serving food, asking about my work, pretending this was just a normal family dinner. Halfway through the meal, she set down her fork and looked at me seriously. Claire, I want you to understand that everything I did was to help you. You've been so stressed lately. Working such long hours. I thought if I took some of the burden of property ownership off your shoulders. By forging my signature? She flinched slightly. That's not what happened. You signed those papers. You were just too distracted to remember clearly. I was in Oregon when those papers were supposedly signed. You're confused about the dates, dear. I pulled a sealed envelope from my purse and slid it across the table. What's this? Evelyn asked, her smile flickering. Your voicemail from April 10th. The one where you bragged to someone about finally securing the property and teaching that girl who really runs this family. You pocket dialed me. I had it transcribed and notarized. Her face went completely white. She opened the envelope with shaking hands and read the transcription. Her own words, officially documented, admitting she was transferring property without my knowledge. You wouldn't dare use this in court. I don't have to, I said calmly. Your own words already did. The silence around the table was absolute. Harold was staring at his wife like he'd never seen her before. Nolan had his head in his hands. Evelyn's perfect composure had cracked completely. You recorded me without my permission, you pocket dialed me. I just transcribed the voicemail you left. There's a legal difference. Her hands were shaking. This is ridiculous. That house should have stayed in the family anyway. Your grandmother only left it to you out of spite. My grandmother left it to me because I took care of her for 3 years while she was sick. You never visited her once. Evelyn stood up abruptly, her chair scraping loudly. You ungrateful little, careful, I interrupted. Everything you say right now I can and will document. That stopped her. She stood there, trembling with rage, searching for words that wouldn't incriminate her further. But she couldn't help herself. People like Evelyn never could. That house should have been Nolan's anyway. You didn't earn it. You don't deserve it. And you certainly don't deserve to be part of this family. There it was. The truth she'd been hiding for 3 years. Not protection. Not help. Just entitlement and spite. Thank you for clarifying your motives, I said quietly. Makes everything much simpler. My phone, sitting innocently on the table, had been recording the entire conversation. I picked it up and stopped the recording. I'm leaving now. You have 24 hours to sign a deed reconveying my property back to me. If you don't, we file suit tomorrow. I walked out without looking back. Behind me, I heard Harold's quiet voice. Evelyn, what have you done? Monday morning, the county recorder's office called me directly. Mrs. Hartley? This is the chief deputy recorder. Your affidavit triggered an automatic fraud review in our system. And? We're placing a notice of pending action on your property parcel. It's a formal flag that prevents any transfers, encumbrances, or changes until the dispute is resolved. How long does that take? Depends on whether all parties cooperate. But I want you to know your occupancy rights are completely protected. No one can evict you. Your homeowner's insurance remains valid. You're secure. Thank you. There's something else. That notary, Sylvia Brennan? She's been reported 3 times in the past year for questionable notarizations. Your case is the 4th. The state attorney general's office is now investigating her. After I hung up, Keene called. I just got off the phone with Evelyn's attorney. They're not complying with the rescission demand. They're going to fight this. Then we file suit. Already drafting it. Quiet title action plus preliminary injunction. We'll be in court by end of week. That afternoon, my accountant friend called with interesting information. Hey, I heard about your property situation. Wanted to give you a heads up about something. What? When property changes hands, even through a quitclaim, it triggers a county reassessment for property tax purposes. Doesn't matter if it's changing back. The transfer itself creates a taxable event. So Evelyn's transfer triggered a reassessment on your property. The county sent her a new tax bill based on current market value. She owes about $4,000 in property taxes for the 3 weeks she supposedly owned it. I started laughing. Send me the documentation. I want that added to the costs she owes me. 3 days later, my phone rang from a number I didn't recognize. The voicemail notification appeared while I was in a meeting. I listened to it during my lunch break. A woman's voice, shaky and nervous. Mrs. Hartley, this is Sylvia Brennan. I need to talk to you about the document I notarized. Mrs. Ward told me she was her daughter and the signature was her mother's consent for a family trust transfer. She seemed so confident and official. I shouldn't have notarized it without seeing proper ID. I know I shouldn't have used my expired seal. I'm so sorry. The voicemail continued. She paid me $500 cash to backdate it and use my old seal. I needed the money and I convinced myself it was just a family matter. But I've been getting calls from the state attorney general's office and I can't sleep anymore. I'm sending you a written statement retracting my notarization and explaining what really happened. 20 minutes later, my email dinged. A scanned letter from Sylvia Brennan, notarized by someone else this time, explaining the entire fraud. How Evelyn had approached her. How much she'd been paid. How she'd been told to backdate the document and use an expired seal. How she'd used someone else's journal entry number to cover her tracks. It was a complete confession. I forwarded it to Keene immediately with one word, exhibit. His response came back within minutes. This just became a criminal case. I'm sending copies to the DA's office. That evening, I received a certified letter from the county tax assessor's office. I opened it to find a bill addressed to Evelyn Ward for $4,283 in reassessed property taxes, covering the period from April 12 to present. The letter explained that when she'd recorded the quitclaim, she'd triggered a reassessment as the new owner of record. Even though the transfer was fraudulent, the tax liability was real. I made 3 copies and added them to my evidence file. The courthouse was busy the morning of our hearing. Stone floors, high ceilings, the echo of footsteps and hushed conversations. I arrived early with Keene, carrying my affidavit in a slim binder. Everything organized. Everything documented. The judge was a woman in her 50s with sharp eyes and zero tolerance for nonsense. She reviewed our exhibits while we waited. The forged deed. My actual signature samples for comparison. The expired notary commission. The mismatched journal entry. The text messages. The voicemail transcription. Sylvia Brennan's confession. My proof that I was in Oregon on the date in question. Evelyn arrived with her attorney, dressed expensively as always. She looked confident. Composed. Like this was just a minor inconvenience. That confidence lasted exactly as long as it took the judge to ask her first question. Mrs. Ward, you're claiming Mrs. Hartley authorized this transfer verbally? Yes, Your Honor. My daughter-in-law was overwhelmed with property maintenance and asked me to help. Was she present when the deed was executed? Well, no, but, did you witness her signature personally? The notary did. The judge looked at the expired commission documentation. The notary whose commission had been expired for 14 months? That notary? Evelyn's mouth opened and closed. No sound came out. And according to this affidavit, the judge continued, flipping through pages, Mrs. Hartley was in Oregon on April 12. She has flight records, hotel receipts, hospital documentation, and time-stamped photographs proving her location. She looked at Evelyn over her reading glasses. How do you explain that? Evelyn's attorney whispered urgently to her. She shook her head. The judge's expression hardened. There's also a HELOC application in your name for $200,000 against this property. Can you explain that? Evelyn's attorney stood up, trying to salvage something. Your Honor, there's been confusion about dates. My client believed. Your client forged a signature, the judge interrupted. Used a notary with an expired commission. Fabricated a journal entry number. Then tried to borrow $200,000 against stolen property. That's not confusion. That's fraud. She turned to Keene. Mr. Keene, you've requested a preliminary injunction? Yes, Your Honor. To prevent any further attempts to transfer or encumber the property pending resolution. Granted. No transfers, no loans, no encumbrances. Mrs. Ward is prohibited from taking any action related to this property. The judge made a note on her file. I'm also ordering Mrs. Ward to execute a deed reconveying the property to Mrs. Hartley immediately. Today. In this courthouse. With proper notarization that I will personally verify. Evelyn started to protest, but her attorney put a hand on her arm. Your Honor, my client needs time to. Your client has had plenty of time. The deed will be executed within the hour, or Mrs. Ward can explain her refusal to law enforcement when I refer this case for criminal prosecution. The threat was clear. Evelyn's attorney whispered urgently. She nodded reluctantly, her face pale. My client will execute the deed. Smart choice. The judge looked at me. Mrs. Hartley, I'm awarding you attorney fees and court costs. All of them. Mrs. Ward will pay every penny you've spent fighting this fraud. She set a date for a final hearing to formalize everything. And Mrs. Ward? Consider yourself fortunate I'm not holding you in contempt. I suggest you hire a criminal attorney. The district attorney's office will likely want to speak with you. We left the courtroom in silence. Outside, Keene squeezed my shoulder. You won. Not yet, I said. But soon. The deed reconveyance was executed that afternoon in a conference room at the courthouse. A county notary verified my identity, watched me sign, and stamped it with her official seal. Keene filed it immediately with the recorder's office. My property was mine again. Officially. Legally. Permanently. But the consequences were just beginning for Evelyn. The lender's fraud unit completed their investigation. They sent her a formal letter closing the HELOC application and placing a fraud alert on her credit file. Any future loan applications would trigger enhanced scrutiny. The county tax assessor sent a final bill with penalty fees for late payment. $4,800 total. When Evelyn didn't pay within 30 days, they placed a tax lien on her primary residence. But the biggest consequence came from an unexpected source. Evelyn owned a rental property in another county. She'd been in the process of selling it for $150,000. The title company for that sale had run a routine check and found the notary complaint pattern associated with her name. They froze the escrow pending resolution. The buyers walked away. The deal fell apart. Evelyn's real estate agent called me by mistake, thinking I was still family. I don't understand what happened, she said. Everything was proceeding normally. Then the title company flagged concerns about document authenticity. Now we can't sell. The property's been on the market 6 more months and no one will touch it because of the fraud investigation. I thanked her for the information and hung up. Every action had consequences. Evelyn was learning that now. Nolan moved out completely 2 weeks after the hearing. He'd been staying with his parents, sleeping in their guest room, and according to my sources, getting an earful daily about how I destroyed the family. He came to collect the last of his belongings on a Tuesday afternoon when I was at work. Left his key on the kitchen counter with no note. Our divorce would be finalized in 60 days. No contest. No arguments. Just signatures and a judge's stamp ending a marriage that should never have happened. The final hearing was scheduled for 3 weeks later. Keene wanted to make sure every detail was documented, every consequence attached to the right person. The judge reviewed everything methodically. The original fraud. The successful reconveyance. The attorney fees. The court costs. The tax consequences. Mrs. Ward, the judge said, looking directly at Evelyn, I'm voiding the original quitclaim deed ab initio. That means from the beginning. It never had legal effect. Title is quieted in Mrs. Hartley's name exclusively. She signed the order with a firm stroke. You're also ordered to pay Mrs. Hartley's attorney fees in full. $18,500. Court costs of $2,200. And the property tax assessment of $4,800 that your fraudulent transfer triggered. Evelyn sat stiffly, her face a mask. Additionally, I'm referring this case to the district attorney for potential criminal charges. Wire fraud. Forgery. Conspiracy. The DA will determine what charges are appropriate. The judge turned to me. Mrs. Hartley, I want to commend you for how you handled this situation. You documented everything. Acted through proper legal channels. Never took matters into your own hands. That's exactly how these situations should be handled. Thank you, Your Honor. After court, Keene and I stood on the courthouse steps. The notary is facing license revocation, he told me. She'll never notarize anything again. And the state is investigating how many other documents she falsified. And Evelyn? The DA is reviewing the case. Given the dollar amounts involved and the premeditation evidenced in those text messages, she's looking at potential felony charges. My phone buzzed. An email from the county recorder with a fresh title report. Property owner, Claire Hartley. Liens, none. Encumbrances, none. Disputes, resolved. Clean title. I took a photo of it and saved it to my phone. Then I drove home to start rebuilding. The consequences continued to land exactly where they belonged. The lender's fraud unit completed their full investigation and placed a notation on Evelyn's credit report that would remain for 7 years. Any future loan application would trigger immediate fraud review. Her rental property remained unsellable. After 6 months, she finally took it off the market and kept it as a rental, but the property management company required additional insurance due to the fraud investigation. That cost her $300 monthly. The tax lien on her primary residence meant she couldn't refinance or take out any loans against it. She was essentially property rich and cash poor, trapped by her own greed. Nolan filed for divorce from his end as well, hoping to expedite the process. Our divorce was finalized exactly 60 days after he moved out. We split our minimal shared assets. He took his car and his personal belongings. I kept my house and my peace of mind. The separation agreement he'd signed that night in the kitchen held up perfectly. He didn't contest anything. Didn't try to claim any interest in my property. Just signed the papers and walked away. The last time I saw him, he was loading boxes into a moving truck. He looked smaller somehow. Defeated. I really didn't know she was going to forge your signature, he said quietly. But you knew she was stealing my house. The texts prove it. I thought I was protecting you. She convinced me you were making bad financial decisions. I wasn't. And even if I had been, it was my house. My decision to make. He nodded slowly. I see that now. Too late. I watched him drive away and felt nothing but relief. I spent the next month reclaiming my space. Had the locks changed even though Nolan had returned his key. Repainted the front door a deep blue instead of the beige Evelyn had insisted was more appropriate. Framed my grandmother's old house key and hung it in the entryway. A reminder of where this house came from and who it belonged to. I also had a new title insurance policy issued, with explicit fraud protection and a notation about the resolved dispute. Cost me $800, but it was worth every penny for the peace of mind. 3 months after the final hearing, I received a letter from the district attorney's office. They were moving forward with charges against Evelyn Ward. 2 counts of forgery. 1 count of fraud. 1 count of conspiracy. Trial was scheduled for 6 months out. I wouldn't have to testify at trial if I didn't want to. My affidavits and documented evidence would speak for themselves. But I planned to be there anyway. To watch justice actually happen. Sylvia Brennan, the notary, took a plea deal. Admitted to notary fraud and agreed to cooperate fully against Evelyn. In exchange, she avoided prison but lost her notary commission permanently and had to pay $10,000 in fines. One evening, I was sitting on my front porch when my neighbor came over. I heard about what happened, she said. With your mother-in-law and the house. News travels. I just wanted to say I'm impressed. Most people would have just screamed and fought. You documented everything and let the law handle it. Screaming doesn't hold up in court. Documents do. She laughed. Well, I'm glad you kept your house. Your grandmother would be proud. She was right. My grandmother had taught me more than penmanship. She'd taught me to be methodical. To keep records. To trust the process. Those lessons had saved my house. 6 months later, Evelyn's trial began. I attended every day, sitting in the back of the courtroom, watching the case unfold. The prosecutor was methodical. Presented the forged deed. My affidavit. The expired notary commission. The text messages showing premeditation. Sylvia Brennan's testimony about being paid to backdate documents. The proof I was in Oregon when I supposedly signed the deed in person. Evelyn's attorney tried to argue confusion, family misunderstanding, good intentions gone wrong. But the evidence was overwhelming. The jury deliberated for 3 hours. Guilty on all counts. The judge sentenced her to 2 years in prison, suspended pending 5 years of probation. $25,000 in fines. 500 hours of community service. And full restitution to me for all costs, which now included the attorney fees from the criminal case. She would never be able to own property in her name again without triggering enhanced scrutiny. Her reputation in her social circle was destroyed. Her rental property eventually sold at a loss after another year on the market. I didn't attend the sentencing. Didn't need to see her face when the judge pronounced judgment. I'd already won. Not through revenge or cruelty. Just through documentation and patience. That evening, I sat at my dining table with a glass of wine and looked at the official title deed with my name on it. Properly recorded. Properly notarized. Indisputably mine. My grandmother had left me this house because she trusted me to protect it. And I had. Not with anger or drama. With copies and timestamps and affidavits. With methodical, legal, documented proof. My phone buzzed. A text from Keene. Final restitution check cleared. Your account should show the deposit. Congratulations on closing this chapter. I checked my bank account. There it was. Every penny I'd spent plus interest. The last loose end tied up. A year after that phone call from the title company, I was standing in my kitchen making coffee when I realized something. I wasn't angry anymore. I'd spent months being furious. At Evelyn for her greed and entitlement. At Nolan for his weakness and complicity. At the system that almost let them get away with it. But somewhere along the way, the anger had faded. Replaced by something quieter. Satisfaction. I'd kept my house by keeping my head. By documenting instead of shouting. By trusting the legal process instead of trying to fight fire with fire. That afternoon, I scheduled a meeting with a financial advisor. Started planning for the future instead of dwelling on the past. Looked into investment options. Considered whether I wanted to keep the house or sell it eventually on my own terms. My own choice. A few weeks later, I was gardening in the front yard when a young couple walked by. They stopped to admire my flower beds. Beautiful house, the woman said. How long have you lived here? My whole adult life. My grandmother left it to me. You're lucky. Houses with history like this are rare. I know. And I don't take it for granted. That evening, I sat on my porch watching the sunset and thought about everything that had happened. Evelyn had written her plan with arrogance. Assumed I was too weak or too trusting to fight back. Assumed she could steal my house with a forged signature and walk away clean. She'd been wrong on every count. I'd ended it with paper and sunlight. With affidavits and timestamps. With methodical, documented proof that couldn't be argued away. I didn't burn bridges anymore. I documented them. And then I closed them. My house. My name. My peace. Exactly as it should be.